Now, there are still many unanswered questions about Quebec's plan and the idea of vaccine passports in general. To address some of those, we would like to bring to the program two of this country's leading bioethicists. Carrie Bowman is from the University of Toronto. Arthur Schaefer is from the University of Winnipeg. Hello to the both of you.
Hi, Michael.
University of Manitoba.
Oh, I apologize. University of Manitoba. There we go. Yeah, slap me on the face for that one. Thanks for that, Arthur. Hey, listen, so I do want to start with Quebec's announcement this week that it plans to use vaccine passports to prevent access to high-risk places like gyms and restaurants if a fourth wave actually hits. Carrie, I'm going to start with you. What's your reaction to this idea of using vaccine passports?
Well, look, Quebec is saying not now. Quebec is saying we will use them if we need to use them, if we've got a fourth wave. And, you know, that I appreciate. I do think there's lots of ethical problems with vaccine passports in terms of freedom of movement. There's an element of surveillance to them. But are they justified? Well, it has to be proportional. And what Quebec is saying is we will see, but it's in our back pocket. So, I think if we do have a crisis and we have a fourth wave, God forbid, it may be justifiable, but I don't think it is right now.
Arthur, what do you think? Because, based on what we're hearing from people, and perhaps not surprisingly, who are double vaccinated, they think this idea does make sense.
I agree. I think it makes very good sense. At present, if residents of the various provinces across Canada are going to be able to move towards a resumption of normal activity, which means attending in-person classes at university, living in university residences, going to football, hockey, baseball games, going to concerts, gymnasia, restaurants. Those who are vulnerable to infection from those who haven't been vaccinated, I think, are entitled to protection. And if you decide when the vaccine is freely available to you that you aren't going to be vaccinated, I think you should carry the risk of harm rather than the person you might infect. So long as we haven't reached zero COVID and there's a real danger of infection, I think vaccine passports are a good idea.
Mm-hmm. So, Carrie, what are your concerns overall? You mentioned them in brief, but maybe you could dig in a bit more as to what your concerns are.
Introducing anything into this troubled world and society that's going to add to the division of people is not a wonderful thing, and this does do that. Right now, not everyone has had a chance to have vaccine passport or full vaccination yet, so that's a concern. And look, there is an element of surveillance to this, or there could be an element of surveillance to this. So some people would say, well, who cares? I don't care if people know where I go on a Friday night, where I go for coffee, and where I go for dinner. But still, there really could be. And you also get this thing called the slow creep, in which, things are introduced, and we've given up a lot of our rights, really, in this pandemic, and they never really recede again. So I do see a lot of problems with it. We're talking nationally here, but look, internationally, just as an example, we've already got this mess going on with where, like, I have AstraZeneca, I need to work in Africa. There's places I can't go because of, restrictions. And it's already introducing divisions with people that are not scientifically grounded.
Okay, well, listen, let's hold off on international right now. We'll get there to a second, but let's focus domestically. Arthur, do you not have any concerns about perhaps a vaccine passport creating divisions within this country?
No, I don't. I think people will be treated unequally, but so long as everyone has equal free access to the vaccine, and virtually everyone in Canada does now, except for those who are under a certain age, I don't see the equality issue as, this is not unwarranted discrimination. This is a distinction based on the fact that some people pose a threat to the health of others. And to restrict someone's liberty on the grounds of preventing harm to others, I think, can be justified. Now, Carrie's mentioned his concerns about surveillance. Others talk about concerns about privacy. I think both of those can be easily managed and trivial. We need I wish the federal government hadn't dropped the ball on this and had produced a model vaccine passport for the whole country, but each province is going to have this challenge. The passport should protect individual privacy. I had someone tell me on a radio show the other day that knowing that they're vaccinated, others being able to discover it, is equivalent to knowing that they had venereal disease. Oh, crikey. How invasive of your privacy is it if people know that you've been vaccinated? And people should know, because if you're unmasked, I can avoid you. If you're unvaccinated, I can't see it. As to surveillance, I'd ask Carrie, why is this different from a driver's license?
Well, driver's licenses aren't tracked, Arthur, really. This potentially could be, and we don't really know how it's going to be stored. And, when you say, earlier planning would have been a great idea with all of this, but we really don't know what element of information is going to be used and how it's going to be used. Look, I'm not saying it's out of the question. What I would say is, in a crisis, it has to be proportional. Yes, we're in a national crisis and a global crisis, but I mean a deepening crisis with a fourth wave. It may be justified. I don't think we're there yet. I think it's going to introduce lots of limitations. Yep.
We can agree there shouldn't be tracking. There shouldn't be any information on the vaccine passport except when you were vaccinated and that you are fully vaccinated. It should also, I suppose, record which vaccine you've had in case some of them turn out to be problematic, which may be your problem if you want to go to Africa. But, these sort of slippery slope arguments, if we do it properly, we can absolutely minimize the risk, we can minimize the restriction on liberty, and we can open up society safely for the great majority who'll be vaccinated. Because the alternative is that if you have a vulnerable health status, or if you can't be vaccinated, or if you're under 12 years of age, your freedom is going to be severely restricted unless you know that you can safely go to a concert, that you can safely work out at the gym, that you can safely be in a university residence. The alternative is that you're imposing the cost, the threat, on others who may not know that they're threatened because they don't know what your vaccine status is.
Can I jump in here? Because and I'm going to throw a bit of a wrench into this one as well, because there is the argument being made, Carrie, that, that many people seem to like, that if you actually have vaccine passports, well, perhaps that would then encourage those that have yet to get the vaccine to finally get inoculated. Is there not at least some public health advantage to a vaccine passport as well?
There is, and I do think this is exactly why Quebec, this is my opinion, by the way, exactly why Quebec has made the announcement that it did at the timing that it did. I think it's the nudge, and the nudge is directly targeted towards younger people. The language of gyms, bars, that type of, I'm being a bit stereotypical here, but that might be much more appealing to people in their 20s. But look, we live in a society that any action in healthcare is really meant to be based on complete free will. And, if a person's vaccinated because they're really, really opposed to it on whatever level it may be, and they feel they're forced to do it, that is not wonderful in an open and democratic society as I see it.
Mm-hmm. Listen, let's fast forward here to international passports now for international travel, because you do raise the fact that not every jurisdiction has approved the same vaccine. So what is an ethical way that we can create vaccine passports for people to travel freely, especially those who are double vaccinated, without disadvantaging certain countries, certain nationalities? Carrie, what do you think?
I'd say, first of all, we're a little too late on that one, because what we see right now, and I'm in regular correspondence with people both in Latin America and Africa, is that most people cannot travel because they don't have any access to vaccines other than the privileged in low-income countries and growing amounts of people in high-income countries. So we already have this inequity. The next problem is which vaccine. And to answer your question more directly, I think the only way through this is to follow World Health Organization guidelines. I've already got issues because I'm AstraZeneca. What about the Sputnik, which is from the Russian Federation, Sputnik 5 or V as it's pronounced, the two Chinese? They do reach the threshold acceptable by WHO, and many countries don't want them. So, a big problem. I think WHO is the only way through this one.
Arthur, what do you think in terms of international vaccine passports? What's a way to be able to issue one ethically?
Well, let me quickly agree with Carrie, because I want to go back just one step, Michael, if I may, and say that vaccine passports will be an incentive to those who are undecided, hovering as to whether to be vaccinated or not. I think that's a good thing, especially if there's an alternative. If you have severe scientific reservations or religious or other reservations about being vaccinated, and you want to go to a concert at the Calgary Stampede and can't produce a certificate, the alternative they're providing is you can do a fast test. And if we have an accurate fast test that's available, that's a good alternative. If you don't want to be vaccinated and you want to take in-person classes, well, there's an incentive, get vaccinated. But you should have the alternative of remote learning, of doing your class on Zoom
Quickly,
or
Arthur,
on Skype. So I think we need to give alternatives to people to make it as little restrictive as possible. And hey, it's your choice to be vaccinated or not. We need to protect the vulnerable, including those who can't be vaccinated. You should bear the cost of your choice.